الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. اللهم ربنا أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. اللهم أرنا حقائق الأشياء كما هي ربنا زدنا علما وعملا وإخلاصا يا رب العالمين. اللهم انصر أولياءك في مشارق الأرض ومغاربها. اللهم انصرهم على عدوك وعدوهم إنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم فرج عنا وعن إخواننا في مشارق الأرض ومغاربها. اللهم نفس كربنا وكربهم وثبت أقدامنا وأقدامهم والطف بنا وبهم يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم أدخل السرور على قلوب المسلمين. اللهم تقبل شهدانا وارحم موتانا واغفر موتانا. اللهم اشف جرحانا. اللهم فك أسرانا. اللهم اشف جرحانا ومرضانا. اللهم فك أسرانا. اللهم فك أسرانا واسلك كل فاسد من أمور المسلمين يا رب العالمين. وصلي وسلم على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأزواجه وذريته أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. آمين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So these are some questions which have been sent to me. We're going to try to, not really questions, they are objections which are questions, these are objections which are formulated as questions. I don't know whether intentionally or unintentionally, but obviously they are from, you can just reading by the, by just reading the questions, you can glean a few things. For example, as by someone who doesn't understand what he's talking about. So you ask question about something, if you have read it and try to understand it, hasn't understood it, or have understood it but you have some objections and you want to clarify those. It doesn't seem like that. So basically these questions come from a group which we might call semi-literate or intellectuals, or those people who parrot their formulations. So I'm going to look at these questions not in order to answer someone else, but to clarify our own minds about these issues. Okay, so the questions have a sort of a preamble or preface. Dr. Javed Ansari is strongly critical of capitalism. I don't know what it means, but he has developed a critique of capitalism, yes. He rejects capitalism, yes. And then he goes on to say he cites two countries that in his view revolted against capitalism and established Islamic states, Afghanistan and Iran. So first let's talk about Dr. Javed Ansari's, as the sources of Dr. Ansari's critique of capitalism. I think that's important. Sources of Dr. Ansari's critique of capitalism comes from various sectors or various backgrounds. First, have the internal critiques or understanding of capitalism. So he's a world-class economist. So within the field of economics, especially within the field of political economy, you have an internal critique of capitalism. It comes from let's say Keynesianism was one of the Keynesianism. The school of thought established by British logician, mathematician, and economist John Keynes. And before that, you have critique from within political economy, which is sort of symbolized or sort of epitomized in Karl Marx's critique of capitalism. The third source is obviously the sociological studies of capitalism. Within sociology is a discipline, capitalist discipline par excellence. And obviously Marx come here as well, because he is among the founding fathers of sociology, modern sociology. In this Weber's work is important. His rationalization thesis, his Protestant work ethic thesis, his and also you can include Durkheim's work, etc. So that's a sociological sources. The third one is the Christian, Christian critiques of capitalism. So they include the critique of other Christian, the critiques of justification of capitalism provided by Protestantism, Protestant Christianity. The work like R.H. Tawney is important here, but there are others as well. Religion and the Rise of Capitalism is a classical work. Obviously, Tawney draws on Max Weber's thesis, but his critique is a Christian critique of capitalism. So, fourth, and that's important because capitalism replaced Christianity with the help of other forms of Christianity, but so the most telling critique of capitalism will always come from religion, because it replaced religion, it revolted against religion. The fourth is what we can call conservative critiques of capitalism. Conservative critique of capitalism is also internal critique of capitalism, and it is encapsulated in another classical work by Karl Polanyi. It's called The Great Transformation. Which argues that creating capitalist markets lead to social destruction and crisis, etc. The fifth source of understanding capitalism is philosophy. especially that of Immanuel Kant and Hegel and his followers. And obviously Marx was their followers, and Habermas, you can include him as well now. And especially, I think that's the unique contribution of Dr. Ansari, his analysis of freedom as a value, as the heart of Western humanism, and rejection of Christianity and Islam, because they're based on worship, and freedom is the exact opposite of worship, and how freedom is related to capital and capitalism. So when you worship freedom, basically what you do is you surrender yourself to the god of capital. So that's and the last one, obviously, his understanding of capitalism is religious and Islamic, in the sense that he sees capitalism is basically embodiment of freedom, which is thought, and which is antithesis of ibādat, which is worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is manifested in two amrazul qulub, the diseases of heart. One is what Christian used to call avarice, which is greed, and the other is covetousness or envy. So understanding of capitalism as against all the internal critiques, especially Marxist, etc., what differentiated from that is capitalism is seen as a spirituality, but a satanic spirituality which is based on greed and envy. And when greed and envy overwhelm individual, society, and state and capture them, then you have a system called capitalism. And obviously, in Islam rejects that system by its very nature, as does Orthodox, mainstream Christianity as well, before it surrendered to capitalism. And that's why he understands capital as takāthur. Takāthur does mean capital in the sense accumulation for the sake of accumulation. Which is translated by Marmaduke Pickthall as rivalry in worldly gains, which is the exact translation of accumulation for the sake of accumulation. And what you must combat capitalism is through rejecting freedom and choosing worship at all levels, individual, society, as well as the state, and rejecting greed and envy, and choosing zuhd, faqr, as your values, which are manifested again, must be manifested again at all three levels: individual, society, and state. And that's what revolution is. Deconstructing modern individuality, society, and state, and its basis in greed and envy, and replacing it with individuality, which is shaped not by freedom but by worship, and which is guided by zuhd and faqr, not by envy and greed. Similarly, society and state. So that is Dr. Javed Ansari's critique of capitalism and understanding of capitalism and its sources. Okay, and now saying that he cites two countries that, in his view, revolted against capitalism and established Islam, Afghanistan and Iran. That is misleading, because he doesn't cite those countries as proof of revolt against capitalism, because Dr. Ansari's critique of capitalism predates the Iranian Revolution. In fact, he actually served in the first Islamic post-revolutionary Islamic government of Mehdi Bazar. And obviously, he advises Islamic ibādat as well through the Afghan economy group or something like that. So his critique of capitalism predates these Islamic states. What he sees the Islamic state as potential states which are challenging capitalism through their very nature, which is that they are Islamic and they are independent, trying to be independent, sovereign Islamic states, and they are run by and ruled by ulama, not by capitalists. And Islam, by its very nature, challenges capitalism. In that sense, the Islamic states challenge capitalism, but they are just the beginning. There are two Islamic states which are potentially anti-capitalist states, actually and potentially capitalist state, but they are surrounded by a world order which is capitalist and which is very strong and overwhelming. So they are sort of vanguard of Islamic revolution. So what we need is a revolution in Pakistan, Egypt, Turkey, big countries. We need revolution in Saudi Arabia to strengthen this potential revolt against capitalism and establish Islamic way of life, Islamic civilization, which is the antithesis of capitalism. So that's the main crux, and I think this should answer all other questions as well. But we'll in next few videos I'll try to take those questions separately as well. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. وصلى وسلم على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وآله وأصحابه وأزواجه وذريته أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين آمين آمين يا رب.